Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about battery electric buses. They are the way of the future, even though we are having problems with them right now. So here are the three issues I hear about most often regarding the battery electric buses. Number one is the battery's range. Number two is the having charging problems. And number three is about the batteries themselves and manufacturing them. I will talk about all of those in this video. Let's start with the range. TriMet has 5 New Flyer electrics that recharge every time they get to Sunset Transit Center from an overhead charger. And we also have 5 Gillig long-range buses that just charge once overnight by plugging them in. I've talked about that on a previous video about TriMet electric buses, which you should watch. Now these long-range electric buses promise a range of about 150 miles on a single charge. Now that might sound like a lot, but you would be surprised how many routes run more than that in a given day. There are a lot of long bus runs. Now I'll tell you the solution for this in a minute, but first I've got to talk about charging problems. All of the electric buses that TriMet currently has have been experiencing charging problems at some point or another. In 2020, the 3800 series buses, the New Flyer electrics, were pretty much not running most of the year. TriMet was able to work with New Flyer on this, however, and got it all fixed up and ready to go, and pretty much from that point on, they've been in regular service on the Line 62. TriMet was able to work something out. A lot of lessons were probably learned here on what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that. And so TriMet has gained that knowledge, and I guess New Flyer probably has as well. There is a solution to this problem. I'm not sure the specifics of what issues there were, but the fact that they have been ironed out, at least mostly, tells me that that's at least a path in the right direction. You know, we are moving forward with this. We are able to... Technology is able to improve, which we know it's going to. So how do we solve this? Definitely we need to continue buying battery electric buses. I know it's kind of like, well, they're not working great right now. We know technology will improve. It always does. And we've mastered making diesel buses at this point, so we will eventually master making battery electric buses. We already have diesel buses that you can kind of fall back on if certain things aren't working too well. But really, I think the diesel buses should act more like training wheels after a while, once our electric bus fleet gets large enough. It should only be used if absolutely necessary. So now let's get a little more specific. Keep buying the long-range electric buses and just kind of hope for the best. That higher range gives you a nice margin that you could be in. You know, if you get a short-range electric bus, it's much more limiting. Then add chargers at the transit centers with an arm that would come down and touch the top of the bus to charge it. So that way you could get a long-range battery bus out on the day more frequently. Let's say right now the 4300 series buses are kind of sometimes on the 20, sometimes on the 6. It's kind of interesting, but they were meant for the Line 20. Let's say, you know, they are long range. They are able to go from Merlo Garage, Beaverton to Gresham, to Beaverton to Gresham, and deadhead all the way back, or sometimes even go in service back to Beaverton and back to Merlo before they've exhausted all their range. And that's pretty good. It lasts about 8-ish hours. That's not bad. But you could make it much, much better by just simply adding chargers at the Beaverton Transit Center and the Gresham Transit Center and all other transit centers for other routes that begin or end at them. So now, let's say you took that same bus from Beaverton to Gresham and you could recharge at Gresham. That way you could get some of that range back. And it could be kind of like a fast charger like the ones at Sunset Transit Center, to where it can charge it quite a bit. Then it comes all the way back to Beaverton, and then it receives a pretty good amount of charge as well. This gives you way more range. Even if it's 150 miles, it'll give you possibly well over that. Let's say you installed 1 to 2 chargers at every transit center. Some of the more major ones may need 3 chargers. And that way, your buses could pull up to them and recharge through that during their break. The Line 20 gets a huge break at the Beaverton Transit Center and a pretty long break at Gresham as well. So it gives you plenty of time to be able to recharge these buses. Maybe some other areas would get some use out of these chargers as well. Maybe put 1 or 2 at each part of North Terminal up by Union Station. I know it's not the best part of town, but there are a lot of buses that end there. Okay, but there's a third issue that I haven't even addressed, and that's the batteries themselves, specifically manufacturing these batteries. This might surprise you, but the carbon footprint of making a battery electric bus is actually higher than that of making a diesel bus, thanks to the cells in the batteries. It's a very different process. So why would we go and buy battery electric buses if we know that diesel buses have a lower carbon footprint when they're being manufactured? Well, I kind of answered my own question in my question. When they're being manufactured, you more than make up for this in the long run, however. Let's talk about regenerative braking. This is one of the best things that battery electric buses do that normal diesel buses cannot. As you accelerate, you draw some power from the battery to power the motor to move the bus forward. That makes sense. Then, when you want to decelerate, you can turn the motor into a generator and slowing the motor down. And that energy can be pushed right back into the batteries so that it can be stored for later. You can never recover 100% of the energy. I'm not sure how it is on buses, but on electric cars it's probably around 50% of the energy goes back into the battery. But still, better than nothing. Let's say your route has a hill that you climb and go back down again. On an electric bus, you can drive like normal, and then as you go up the hill, you're using electricity, you're using the energy stored in the battery, which makes sense. But as you go down the hill, you're going to be using regenerative braking as you're going down the hill, so it's recharging your battery. Now on a diesel bus, you're burning fuel going into the atmosphere, you're burning fuel going up the hill, you're burning fuel going down the hill. You never gain anything when using diesel power or gasoline power or anything that isn't battery electric or any zero emissions vehicle like that. That's what's so amazing about battery electrics, is that regenerative braking capability. So you use these buses long enough, you'll more than make up for the carbon footprint involved when making the buses firsthand. So if pollution is your concern with carbon footprint, good. That's a good thing to be concerned about. But just know that you more than make up for it as you use them. It probably doesn't even take very long before you've more than made up for how many emissions a diesel bus puts into the atmosphere thanks to its exhaust pipe, even on renewable diesel, which burns much cleaner. It's still diesel. This might be equally as cool as regenerative braking, and that is batteries. I'm talking about batteries a lot. Let's say the 4300 series buses we have promise a range of 150 miles. That's great. I'm not sure how they're constructed. I'm not sure if the batteries are easily replaceable if one goes wrong or something. But let's say in 5, 6, 7 years, or even further, we've mastered the ability of pushing 200 miles into making a 200-mile range bus. And then you could send one bus in to get all of its batteries replaced with new ones. Let's say you did that. Now you've just upgraded your bus. This bus here used to run on 150 miles on a single charge. Now it runs on 200 miles on a single charge. And you didn't even need to buy a new bus. You just needed to get new batteries. How awesome is that? And the driving mechanism is so simple in these. There's no transmission. There's no combustion engine. There's far less moving parts. You just need to get the wheels to move. It's just an electric motor. They're very simple, and so these will last forever. The batteries may not last very long, but technology is going to improve over time anyways, so when the batteries go bad, you could send them in to get new batteries, which probably will have higher range, so it's a win-win, and the buses can keep chugging for another 20 years. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I'm sure some people agree, some people don't agree with things that I'm saying. Some people want to see us move forward with electrics. Some people are fed up hearing about issues about the electrics. You know, we have to find a direction to move towards, and TriMet is committed to being non-diesel by 2040, so we're going to have to see how that works. In fact, TriMet's not going to be purchasing any diesel buses starting in, or possibly after, fiscal year 2024. So we better get this figured out soon. But anyways, I thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you later this week with another upload of some transit ride video.